Welcome to The Sidebar, a book club for the horrifyingly illiterate. I'm David.
I'm Gabe the Gooner.
And I'm Capitalissimo. Joining us today is the one and only Miles McNaughton from Unreal Press.
Hey fellas, good to be back at the bar.
Oh, yeah. We're still doing the drinking subtext here. I'm having a Coors Banquet.
I'm having a charged lemonade from Panera.
And I'm having a ghetto blaster of 7 Life with vodka. Tito, no, not even Tito's. This is like the plastic jar shit. Yeah, Miles is back in the house. Miles, you have a big announcement. Something's been cooking over at Unreal Press.
Yes, it has. Before we continue, I'd like to say I'm having a tall glass of water. I think that's the best drink for tonight. I've got big news. Tales of the Unreal Volume 2 is finally out. We had 37 submissions. We got 17 of them the best. Compiled them all into a really nice, roughly pocket-sized book. And it's out now. You can find it in the description below.
Exciting. I read the first one, and you had the cover story in that one, Twin Candles, and I fucking hated that story. It was the worst one in the entire collection. I did like Unreal Tales 1, and I've already bought Unreal Tales 2. And I've already told you that I thought that you improved as an author for the second one. But I'm going to tell the entire world right now that you fucking sucked at Twin Candles. It was brutally bad.
Twin Candles, I didn't like Twin Candles. I don't think it was the worst. I'm trying to think, what was the absolute...
Twin Candles are decent. It was good. It was a solid 6, at least.
Not My Problem was probably the worst in Tales 1.
Yeah, that one was just confusing. It was just, baffling. But
also,
isn't that the one with that's the diabetes guy in the car, right?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't as bad as Unbound, but not My Problem.
Real piece of shit.
Yes. Also, Cap, I'm very sorry that at some point in your life you ate just the fattest piece of coal and it burned all your taste buds off. Hopefully someday they regrow. That would be really nice, because then you can appreciate good artwork.
Was I supposed to fucking eat your story?
Yes.
Okay.
You're supposed to consume it.
All right. I'll give it a
Listen,
shot.
Americans and their fucking food metaphors.
You know, if I'm gonna avoid seed oils, I feel like I should avoid all of the dangerous petrochemical dyes that come from these print-on-demand books.
Ooh, that's true.
Should wear gloves.
True.
Yeah, Ryeg nationalists would not approve of eating Unreal Tales 1.
There's a great article about petrochemicals in Tookie's magazine.
Oh, yeah. So that's how you can learn about it. And just a soft chill for us, since this may be guest posted on the Unreal account. We're a podcast about alt literature, kind of a book club format, a little bit of a spiritual sequel to the Unreal Press podcast, which has been on pause for quite some time. So, if anyone enjoys this, just look us up, Tukey's Mag on YouTube or Twitter, and then Gabe Underground and Capitalismo on Twitter as well. You can just follow us there if you're interested. Or just spam us and try and dox us like most people do.
You should definitely try and dox Gabe, because he has the least to lose.
Hey, I have plenty to lose, thank you.
Oh, yeah? Much. Why don't you just say your address?
Do you know how much nudes I have floating out there?
Oh my God.
Of yourself? So
yes.
You've already doxed yourself
on my testicles
with nudes.
In particular. Well, my balls.
You've doxed your balls. Doxed your balls. Really shouldn't have gotten that QR code tattoo on your left nut. It's going to be really easy to find.
Listen, I was in the moment. I was with the boys. You know how we are.
I've seen those Herculean thighs, so I can't pretend I'm innocent in all
They're
this.
thick, right?
Yeah.
I could do a bean-ass leg press, man.
A bean-ass leg press? That makes sense. Brown.
Like a lima bean? I never heard this.
No, it's like when you leg
a fellow
press,
from the southern border.
No, I could probably kick a gordita to death, probably.
Well, why would you kill a little fatty?
No, a big fatty.
A gordita?
A gordita. It's a slang term for a fat woman in Spanish.
But it's still a shorty. Shorty?
Well, yeah, but I could probably kick 2 to death in that case to
with
make
one,
up for the match.
like a professional wrestling drop kick, fully in the air.
No, it's like a split from bowling. You know when you get you hit the one little stick thing, and the stick thing hits the other stick thing.
It's a pin. You fucking
pin.
Jesus!
Yeah.
Are you? Every single time,
All right.
every single time we record one of these things, I think that you are an alien slightly more.
Listen, I'm far too bourgeois to participate in just bullshit. All right.
That field went too smart for both.
Yeah, but we're going too far afield. Obviously we've already popped the champagne, metaphorically speaking. Some of us are drinking bottom shelf vodka, but it's good.
You couldn't afford
to
Tito's, so you got Sesescu vodka.
But Miles, we want to just pick your brain about the new release. Obviously, we're all excited for it, particularly Cap, who loves your new story. We're planning a full detailed review we'll see, probably next month or so.
Should be October, just in time for Halloween.
Yeah, maybe we could. Yeah, maybe we could time it like right on that same week. That'd be pretty spoopy. And
it's thematic.
And I don't know if you guys had any questions for Miles. I had just one or two. I mean, you mentioned that you had some stories you went through. I'm just curious, how many subs did you end up getting? Was it a lot of new people, a lot of names people be familiar with?
Yeah, so we had 37 submissions. Most of them were not from people who had done previous submissions to previous Unreal anthologies. We had a lot of outside submissions. There's a lot of common names people would recognize. K.R. Hartley, who's the editor for Ant Magazine, submitted a piece. Ellie Labuschagne, who's former Unreal Press host. We also had Ogden Nesmer, who wrote Eggplant, I Pray to the Hungry God. And we have, of course, Zulu Alitzpa, who did Savage Green Panther Pride and Modem Waves. We had myself. I submitted, and I did send it to a couple of other people to verify that it was good enough to be included in the book. Just because I'm the editor doesn't mean I can just throw my shit in there, too. But a lot of people actually, I think, heard about it through maybe the previous threads we made before. We did tell a lot of people that Tales 2 was out. We told a lot of people on 4chan. We got some of the word out on Twitter, a little bit of the word out on Substack as well. And we got a lot of outside submissions, people that we had really not seen come across the desk before, which was very exciting for us. As I mentioned, we had 37 total submissions. I had to read them all. Most of them were pretty bad. But not in the bad that was irredeemable, just in the bad that they didn't fit the theme or they're just not quite polished enough for publication and it needed more revisions or the author just needs more time working at their craft. And we envision Tales to be a long-standing pillar of this kind of content. So we're hoping to do a lot more Tales of the Unreal in the future, which means we'll have plenty of people submitting.
It is great to know that fewer than half of the submissions made it in. Like that is actually great because
a strict bottleneck.
Well, I mean, it is because sometimes, there are a lot of these very grassroots sort of extremely online projects that are popping up. And sometimes you wonder, well, how many people are really submitting to these? And, Unreal is very much a passion project sort of thing. Like you guys aren't really getting paid here. The people who submit, they retain ownership of all of their stuff. Sometimes it's not like a passage prize or something like that where there's money on the line. So, this is like 37 people who took the time to put a story together and spend some time on it, submit it, and go through the editorial process. And, I'm sure some of them you did do revisions on some of these, right?
Yes. So there is one story that people are probably going to have a major problem with, and that's the big center story in the middle. It's called Saccharine by Amosai. I talked specifically with that author. We did a lot of back and forth about the grammar and ultimately decided to keep the entire story as he wrote it as is. So all the strange grammar, all the missed plurals, you're going to see a lot of that. And he said it was a stylistic choice because of the content of the story itself. That was as much as he really described it. I thought maybe it's just his impression of maybe a translation from an Eastern language into the Western language. I thought it was quite good. It's extremely weird. It is long, but it's very stylistic and
So it's
well written.
It's a story written in yellow face, is what you're saying. Great. I'm in.
More or
I'm
less.
in.
Yeah, more or less.
Oh, you got Ezra Pound to submit a piece. Nice.
My thing is, if it's consistent, it's just a rule, and he's following it, so he's playing by his own rule.
Yep. I did go through all the stories. I tried to do things like cohesion of M dashes, again, fixing plurals, fixing words, fixing semicolons. There was a lot of that. And I think the result ended up being pretty good. Formatting really took a little bit of time as well, because you have to pick a font, and then you got to separate by sections. You got to get the names, and you got to get the titles, you got to get the page numbers. There's a lot of that little fine detail stuff that I had to take on for myself. Could I spent $300 and given it to somebody and had it done perfectly? Sure. But then what's the point of doing this if I'm just going to spend $300 and have someone else work on my project for me? That seems kind of silly.
Right. I had a question about that. Firstly, what is your approach to the craft of editorship? And two, what was the things you learned from the first part and then this part? Because you read like someone like Raymond Carver, right? And him without an editor and him with an editor are two completely different authors. So I'm wondering, how do you approach the role of editor?
Yep. So my first thought was always theme. When I get a submission is, does this fit the theme? If it doesn't fit the theme, it's not included. We got a submission that was just some bizarre, out of left field, like I can't even describe it. I don't want to put the submitter on blast, but it was just like they didn't even understand that this was a weird / horror anthology. It's like the people who have zero work experience and they apply for some wild ass job that they're never going to get just to submit a job application. So a lot of that, obviously, the theme and the intent I had for this book was, it's got to be weird, and it's got to be maybe a little bit of horror. Weird fiction, horror fiction. That's what I wanted for this. And we got a lot of that really good stuff. And even the stories which don't really have 100% of that bend, again, they were the best of the pool that was submitted. So it kind of gives you an idea of some of the other stuff that I got. So after it passes for theme, I then go and look at strength of prose, make sure that it's actually written well, not incredibly amateur. We did have a couple of submissions that were so actually laughably bad that even though they were on theme, I was like, there's no way I can put this in this. Not in a maybe a periodical, but not in a book.
Did you get any that seemed to be written primarily with AI?
From what I could tell, I didn't see any. I mean, there's been a lot, but the ones that I picked, I could tell had very clear, like authorial voices.
Not that circular AI talk.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it's kind of hard because AI is still not super equipped to write 2,000 to 5,000 words of a good short story. It can kind of get there, especially for the shorter pieces, and there are a couple of those in there. But I didn't think that any of these were AI.
What's the length of pieces like? Because I remember that was a whole conversation with Tales 1 was about varying length, varying content between stories. And I skimmed through it because you shared a PDF just for our awareness the other day. None of us have read it all the way through. But is there a lot of variation between story length?
Yeah, I mean, we actually got a lot of story submissions on the shorter end, which is why there's so many stories in this one, more than there were in the last one. I think the last one had 13. This one, again, has 17. So we had space for 4 more stories in roughly the same sized book. What we found was that a lot of people preferred to submit even under 2,500 words for a short story.
I mean that's flash fiction,
like
at that point.
Yeah. So like myself and LA, we both submitted works that are in the 5,000 range. Saccharin was 8,000 words, but then we had one, Ruby Dagger, and it's like 750 words. It's almost nothing. Yeah. So because we did get some feedback in some of the threads where people are like, hey, it's great to have these long short stories. Yeah, long short stories. That's funny. But we also want to read some of these shorter ones. And when you look at the original Weird Tales magazine, they had those, and they had little poems in between these longer stories. I mean, again, some of their stories were up to 14,000 words. We didn't do anything nearly that long. But I did try to include some more of the shorter stories as well and sprinkle them in, especially around some of the bigger ones to give people a break.
So I collect old books. I collect first editions, rare books, various strange things. But I do have some actual Weird Tales, like the actual old magazines, and they are brittle as shit, but put together in a really, really, really appealing way. And they really mixed it up. There would be these strange sort of illustrations and photo collages, and little poems, sort of, I mean, what you would at this point really call flash fiction. And then right up to, super huge cover stories that were, half the length of the entire thing, full page, no illustrations. It was a really interesting format that, I mean, I'm not sure when it died out, but it seems like it sort of got supplanted by the rise of comic books. It was the common ancestor between like something like Analog or Isaac Asimov science fiction, those sort of pocket-sized pulp magazines that were still, nothing but text essentially, and comic books, and I always got the sense that was sort of the thrust of of Unreal as conceptually, to try to get, try to return to that sort of aesthetic. So yeah, I mean, it does make sense to have shorter and longer works and ones that are of decidedly different tone, though still in the odd, otherworldly sort of category.
Right, and something that we did try to do this is play a little bit more with some of the style. So in the last one, the table of contents was very plain. This time we added some description underneath to give people sort of like a taste for what the stories had to offer. It's not much. The style can change. We could move text here, and we could change this and change that. But I think the most important thing to always remember in anything that you're doing when you're writing is you have to try something. It doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to be perfect even the first time, but you got to try something. Now, what we had in Tales 1 that I wish we had in Tales 2 were, of course, the things that people loved so much were those little scribbles on the front of a lot of the stories. Unfortunately, the guy who did those scribbles is no longer with the press, and he just didn't really have time to do them this time around, which is okay. And really, when like you said, Cap, when you go and look at some of the old Weird Tales stuff, I mean, they had half-page, almost like woodblock drawings. They're just absolutely gorgeous. And the titles are so stylistic. There's looping text, and I did try some of that, and ultimately it was just too garish for a book like this. And I think in future iterations of the Tales of the Unreal, we'll keep trying some of those things and keep trying to experiment, and eventually, it may take 4 books or 5 books, but I think we'll fall into a rhythm where okay, this is starting to be our modus operandi. This is going to be our standard from now on. We're going to do this thing with the table of contents. We're going to have this kind of title. We're going to go for this sort of this cover art. We're going to have an ad on the back. Those sorts of things are really going to fall into place.
I'm super excited to hear that, because that's exactly what I was hoping. I noted the summaries that you included in the table of contents, which was, I thought, really added to the flavor. And anything multimedia like that, variation like that, I think it just adds such a beautiful, adds the flow, because it's as a reader, when you engage with a story and it's just one 3,000 word after another, there's something more taxing about that than having a visual image and a flash. There's something that's just so palate cleansing about those little changes of pace that I'm so glad you're
Yep.
you're moving that direction more, and that you're even brainstorming ideas of ways to do it differently in the future.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you picked up a short story collection from like some no-name author? I mean, those are notorious for selling horribly. They just don't sell, because there's something great about reading a really nice book about a consistent story, and then there's a collection of short stories. I mean, again, Tales of the Unreal is supposed to emulate the feel of Weird Tales and bring back that sort of, tales to horrify you and scare you and make you scream. And obviously, I don't think anyone's ever screamed reading a book, but to have that sort of feel to the magazine is really important. At least to me as the editor for this last edition. And again, you have to keep trying things. It doesn't matter if it's wrong first. Okay, fine, it's wrong. You fix it in the next one, but you have to try and innovate and keep doing these things. Because if you just keep putting out book after book of, just a bunch of short stories and like, oh well, it's Weird Tales, but it has none of the stylistic things that Weird Tales had, it's just never going to really come together.
So since the other guys sucked your dick about the table of contents, why the fuck didn't you put the author names in?
Here we go. The author names.
No, he describes the stories with one line. He doesn't let the work speak for themselves, but he didn't put the author names in.
That is true. However, Mr. Capitalissimo, Mr. Guy, Mr. Fella Online, if you look at Tales of the Unreal Volume 1, the table
We
of
fucked up
contents
both
does not
times.
have any of the authors'
I
names
know.
in that one either.
That's your
You
defense.
don't get any points for that.
Oh, shut up. It's not a... All right. So yeah, if you look at the original Weird Tales magazines and the table of contents, they did have the authors' names. I tried to finagle that myself. I could never get it to look as good as it did in the magazine, because the magazine is quite large and these are a little bit more pocket
they're
book
fucking
size.
huge. Yeah,
So you
they're
have a lot more
bigger
space
than
on
they're
it.
bigger than 8.5 by 11.
Yeah, they're like newspaper size. They're not small.
Defeated by MS Word. It's over.
Okay, you know what? On the next Tales of the Unreal, we're gonna actually send it out as like a legal sized, where it's like 10 by 14 or something.
Yeah. Return to scrolls. We're gonna just unroll this on your table.
By Unreal Tales 20, it's going to be illuminated manuscripts, but it's still going to be Weird Tales.
Tales of the Unreal just gets an inch larger.
It's still
every
going to be
single
weird
time.
fiction, though.
I have an idea about that, and I have a dream of Unreal plugging into, whether it's the Chans or something else, just some artistic drawing type community, and just creating something really mixed media out of this. I think would be really cool.
Mm-hmm. It would be, and we have had collaborators who've done this before. Ryan, who's the editor of AMP Magazine, and K.R. Hartley, he had gone on to the photography board on 4chan and posted that he was looking for people to help him out. He wanted to make AMP a little bit more multimedia, and he just really didn't get any response. And he tried several times. What he ultimately, of course, ended up doing was going to Canva and using a lot of their artwork, which is, of course, open information. Everybody knows that AMP uses Canva. And that's something I think I would like to do, is I would like to find another sketch artist who's willing to come on for these, short but time-sensitive tasks and say, hey, here's 17 stories. Here's a brief description that I had in my mind. Can you write these up and do some sketches? And I think that'd be great. And maybe at some point we can move on to having, like was in, for example, Islamabad Bazaar, which is the third Tales of the Unreal. Sorry, Islamabad Bazaar, which is the third Unreal anthology, where you have full-page spreads on the actual book itself, which was very pretty and an enormous pain to push through Amazon. But that would be a really good ideal and scenario for this.
Thinking of other, somewhat similar projects, the Double Dealer had beautiful art. We kind of rake them over the coals a bit on our episode, but I think the one thing that we all were 100% in agreement on is that the art by and I just looked it up now. Shimmy, was really good. It was great. I think it really enhanced it. Especially the cover was just insane.
Yep.
All right, and Miles, where can people get Tales 2 if they're interested? Because I know, like I said earlier, we're all going to read it at some point. We're going to read it maybe by Halloween. That'd be pretty awesome. Where can people read it if they're interested?
Yeah, you can go to unrealpress.substack.com, and then in the top there should be a pinned message. You can also just click on Tales of the Unreal in the header, and that has the free PDFs for Tales of the Unreal Volume 1 and Tales of the Unreal Volume 2. Those are ebooks. You can turn them into EPUBs if you want. You can also look for Tales of the Unreal on Amazon.com. The Tales of the Unreal Volume 1 is by Guy Hayes, Hayes, and Tales of Unreal Volume 2 is by Miles McNaughton, that's me. And they're both available for ebook or for print, for purchase. Obviously, we don't make really a ton of money. The editing team literally does this for free, and of course, all of our contributors understand that. There's no ethical dilemma here. We hope at some point to be able to actually pay our contributors. That would be very nice. But if you want to pick that up, please support the press. That'd be awesome. Otherwise, we will always have a free PDF up for Tales 1 and Tales 2. And we hope you guys enjoyed the stories, and leave a nice review on Amazon. That'll boost our sales and boost our credibility. And yeah, that's about it.
You have a Substack too, right?
I do have a Substack. You can find me on Substack, milesofwriting.substack.com. I post short stories, I post flash fiction, poetry, and occasional think pieces every week, typically on Monday, but usually any day of the work week I can get to it. You can also follow me on Twitter at MilesMac, MAC 3000.
All right, we'll call it there. Yeah, thanks, Miles, for coming on here and for sharing it at Unreal YouTube. If you do, anyone that's there, consider following us over here on the Tukey's Mag YouTube channel, the Sidebar podcast. We do this kind of retarded conversation all the time, so you can enjoy it.
Hey, sometimes it's elevated. You know,
yeah,
just a little.
Yeah, every now and then.
Yeah, I mean,
Gabe starts talking about making out with a statue.
After a couple more Coors banquets, you know, we start.
Y'all are still on the statue.
Forth.
God damn it!
Yeah, well, because you're still on the statue,
dude. You'll be 100 years old. I'll still be bringing that up.
Listen, I'm too much of an aestheticist. All right, y'all don't understand.
Gabe, you're gonna get uploaded to an AI cloud, and you're gonna be a swarm of nanomachines fucking the shit out of the marble statue. And we're gonna say we knew it the whole time.
I'm Skynet's 40th program.
All right. Good night. Goodbye.
Goodbye.